to be able to express to us what your sentiments are, then it's not a true hearing. With that being said, I would like to introduce to you our General Manager, Mr. Steve Wright.
Well, welcome. As Commissioner Bowles says, it's great to have this kind of crowd here because we love to do stuff that's important, and clearly this is important. A couple of things that I would encourage folks to think about as they present today, either today or if you provide us information in the future. Keep in mind our mission statement is built around enhancing the quality of life for the people of Chelan County. So the more you can tell us about things that enhance the quality of life for the people of Chelan County, that will be helpful to us. And I encourage you to be specific. We hear a lot of discussion about financial impacts. We hear a lot of discussion about job potential, et cetera. The more you can tell us about those kinds of things, that'd be helpful because we've heard the vague representations candidly for months. So we're at a point now where we're ready to hear more specific information. Second, we keep a kind of vision statement on our wall in our boardroom, which is built around best value for the most people in Chelan County for the longest period of time. So again, I would encourage you to, as you think about your comments, that's the way we filter decision making is around what creates best value for the most people for the longest period of time. A couple other quick comments. Number one, I've heard the question a number of times, so why is it that we have a moratorium after we put a high density load and rate in place just a couple of years ago? Quite simply, a lot changed from the time that we put that rate in place. So we put it in and we didn't really know how much load we would see. We put a lot of thought into it, but even with that, it was kind of a let's try it out and see how it goes. A number of things really changed. First of all, the price volatility that we saw starting in November with prices going from, say, under $500 for a Bitcoin to $20,000 really set off a gold rush. We thought maybe we'd see 10 megawatts, 20 megawatts of load under a high-density load rate, and in a 2-month period, we had more than 200 megawatts show up at our doorstep. When you've got 200 megawatts of load in the county and 1,200 megawatts total of generation, that's a huge component, and it changes the whole calculation in terms of the way we think about this, including things like how do we manage financials, how do we manage infrastructure, how do we manage risk. So that caused us, just that alone would have caused us to step back. But candidly, the volatility of that price also was a significant contributor to our concern. Because when you're in the utility business, you're basically a partner with the people that you're selling power to. You're building infrastructure and expecting return on investment, and we build our rates around that return on investment being across decades. And when you have a business partner that might be working with a business model that's built on months or a short number of years versus our decades looking for return on investment, it causes you to pause and say, we're going to have to think differently about the way that we do business under this kind of business model. Third, we were definitely challenged along the way to think about the definition that we were using, because the definition we were using was pretty broad, looked at high-density loads, anything in the 250 kWh per square foot, and that captured a lot of things, and yet clearly there was one big driver for this load request, and it was built around cryptocurrency mining. So whether our definition was appropriate given the challenge that we were addressing came into play as well. Here's the thing that I want to tell all of you who have followed this for a long time or those of you who are new to us. We have learned a ton in the last 3 months. This is a very different kind of problem than anything we have addressed before. So a big year of load growth for us would be 5 megawatts. We have 13 megawatts of high-density load operating on our system today. We have 16 megawatts that was in the queue when we put the moratorium in place. That's 7 years worth of load growth and possibly across a couple of years. That's not common for us to deal with. But that doesn't include all the above 5 megawatt requests that we received between November and December, which added up to close to another 200 megawatts. So you put 200 megawatts on our system, that's doubling the size of the load in the county right now. It's 1/6 of the total amount of generation we have, and obviously we're selling a lot of that other places today. We don't just keep megawatts in our back pocket operating inefficiently. So this required a whole new way of thinking about the way that we would address this problem. We have done a lot of study work, and you're going to hear in a moment from Lindsay Mons, who's going to describe that to you. I know many of you came to speak, and you're probably ready to speak, but I'm going to urge you to just take a breath for a moment and learn about what we've learned over the course of the last few months that Lindsay's going to walk through. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay.
One thing.
Okay.
When it comes time to speak for efficiency, and this is just logistics request, please. Please, as you address the microphone, come up stack yourself about 3 or 4 deep so you don't have a lot of people at the microphone at one time, but everybody has the opportunity to be there. And then we can just step to the next speaker and just keep moving through it. Some of you are seated in an awkward position where you're going to have to step over all your fellow people in the room to get to the microphone. We want to give you time to do that gracefully and still feel you have an opportunity to speak. Yeah, yeah. And again, name, address, in about 3-4 minutes, first round. Lindsay, thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, for the record, I'm Lindsay Mons. I'm the Customer Utilities Business Manager here at the PUD. The purpose of this moratorium hearing today is, of course, to hear from our customers and potential future customers, but also to give you an update as far as what staff has been doing over the last 8 weeks. And as Steve mentioned, we have made significant progress.
Lindsay, you're having a hard time hearing.
Could you move your microphone right in front of you?
Is that better?
We'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for today's discussion, we'll talk a bit about background, though Steve has given us an excellent background already. We'll also talk about some of the challenges we've been facing through this effort, actions since that moratorium was put in place back in March, further actions necessary before we begin connecting new services, and then allow for public comment. Staff has proposed a motion, which of course is up to the Commission following public comment as to whether it's adopted or not, but we will be requesting action today. So as for background, Steve went through several of these numbers already, but we have had a significant amount of load growth already connected in the cryptocurrency area. But the challenge that we run into with a cryptocurrency load Better? Hello?
Not yet.
There, that's right now.
Hello?
Yeah.
There we
Okay.
go. Thank you.
All right. I feel like I'm not on. There we go. Okay. So one of the challenges that we have with cryptocurrency loads,
That's the rule.
so loads of this nature tend to come in pockets. So we'll have a large request in one area of our county or in one area of our substation that's not spread around. So when we do our load growth forecast, it's kind of an even spread throughout the county. So when Steve spoke of load growth forecasts and whatnot, these requests are coming in areas and taking up significant capacity in a specific area. One example is in the area of Kashmir. We, as you know, put a new substation in place just a few years ago. And that substation has already hit the threshold for planning and construction of a new substation. So it's rapidly filling all of our available capacity and causing significant infrastructure needs going forward. Other background, some of the regulation in other countries, as well as increasing value of Bitcoin, has created an influx of large requests into our area. And that's the 200 megawatts that Steve spoke of earlier. And those, we just, this microphone's throwing me off my game. Can I get that stand, Kimberly? All right. Is that better? Okay. Other background, we continue with our investigation and enforcement of unauthorized loads and continuing with our reprioritization of other planned efforts. So these are other business plan items that we were working towards in 2018 that we've not been able to get to as staff has been devoted to this effort. Some of the challenges that we face and significant risks associated with mining operations, they bring infrastructure challenges as well as pricing, cost recovery, questions into reliability and safety. And one of the major issues or items in this area is the mismatch of business models. So as Steve mentioned, we plan and invest on a long-term basis. So we build large assets, substations and things, and create rates that recover the cost of those assets over their lifespan. When we have customers that come in with a short-term investment goal and therefore a short-term life on our system, then we have it's in question whether or not our cost recovery is going to be effective in the way that it's currently modeled. These customers also have unrealistic expectations of the district. They'll call one day and ask for, where might they locate where they can be in service tomorrow. And we just haven't, in our past history, needed to be able to answer that question. And our staff has spent significant amounts of time fielding questions of that nature. So much so that we were not able to start putting a program in place because we were answering questions all day long. So the moratorium has been very helpful in giving staff that time to start developing a program, and we'll talk some more about those developments today. As a district, we manage our system to relatively predictable changes in load growth. So slow, continuous growth, housing developments, things like that. Whereas mining requests, as I mentioned before, come in large pockets and take up more of our growth capacity than was planned and trigger new investments and infrastructure ahead of when we had been planning. Our wholesale marketing program is also impacted. So historically, we sell power to that is in excess to our local load in wholesale contracts. So this provides the best prices because we're able to look into the future and give some assurance to those parties that we are selling to. And in return, that brings revenue into the district and therefore into the pockets of our customers through reduced rates. So we're able to keep our rates below cost because we're able to have an effective wholesale marketing program. As new loads come in unexpectedly, our program is not built to shift that rapidly, so long-term contracts can't be unraveled in order to provide large amounts of power to one single local load. So the impact on our program is significant. We also have impacts to our transmission and distribution capacity availability. I've spoke several times on this already, but looking at where we are able to site while also considering the growth of our community. And then finally, again, staff resources have been over-allocated across the district to work on this project.
Lindsay, let me interrupt you for just a second. For those of you who are standing and it becomes uncomfortable, on the other side of the building, we have the Skycomish room. It's set up with a video feed, places to sit, and like I say, please avail yourself to that should you find yourself in an unsatisfactory position. Skycomish room on the other side. Thank you.
So the first item that we undertook following the adoption of the moratorium in March was to address unauthorized loads, both loads that were unauthorized at the time and forecasting that we would continue to see that growing. So since March, we've put in place new service regulations associated with it, as well as fees and charges. And we've communicated this to the customers. All of our customers received a postcard letting them know what was going on. We also had an amnesty period for the fees and charges that were associated with unauthorized loads, and that amnesty period expires today. We had maybe a handful of requests in that, so not very many. So in order to begin connecting new services, we have several outcomes that we'd like to achieve. And we'd like those outcomes to be neutral to positive to our existing customer owners. So we're able to accomplish this, we believe, by having reasonable assurance that the costs associated with this new load type will be recovered through a mix of fees, charges, and rates. So that's one area that we're working. And we'd like to ensure that the reliability, both the reliability remains high for both of our new and existing customers. And that reliability in terms of our distribution systems and our ability to deliver power, as well as our ability to provide power from our generating resources. We're working to inform new customers so that they're able to develop reasonable expectations for both the short and the long term, keeping them as we go forward from here, now that we have made some progress, keeping them in the loop, communicating with them now, letting them know what we're thinking. We're looking to make decisions that support our community plans. So as our community grows, we're able to be there for them and provide service. And again, minimize staffing impacts from unanticipated work. So the first area we've been working heavily is in updating our existing rate definitions. So many of our previous cost assumptions for the high density load rate were accurate. We put that in place. It went active in January 2017. And many of those we found to be accurate, with the exception of a couple here. One being the assumption related to delivery cost. So electrical equipment is manufactured with a set rating, so it can take so many megawatts. But that rating is developed based on some assumed cooling off periods. So what we're seeing with high density loads and mining loads in particular is that our equipment is not having that cool off period. So we're not able to load equipment to as high of a degree as we were previously. So we're looking at probably about a 50% impact there. So say a customer needs a megawatt. In that case, we would need to have equipment that's sufficient to provide a megawatt and a half so that it doesn't degrade its life because of the heat that's created with that load. So that'll have an impact both in upfront cost to the customer for connecting their load, as well as in the upfront cost component of the high density load rate, perhaps to the tune of about $100 per kW, in addition to the upfront cost that's currently in place. One other assumption that we're finding was not quite right is associated with the risks of the cryptocurrency load in particular, the impact of the mobility and the business model mismatch, which we discussed, and the volatility of the commodity prices. So for that situation, we are recommending refining the rate classification, and that's based on our experience with the HDL loads. The small mobile mining equipment, seeking to use all the available capacity in an area, perhaps by dividing loads, seeking service in multiple locations in order to add up to a specific load request. And this really impacts our organic growth ability. The reliance on volatile commodity prices makes loads swing, so they may come in at one level, and when the price goes up, increase their usage dramatically. If the price goes down, their usage drops. And what really is happening is it's translating electricity into a currency. So utilizing our services when the prices are high at a greater degree. And this has significant impact to our systems, our generating facilities, and all to provide that service. So we'll have further discussion of this cryptocurrency rate class definitions in June. The second area that we've been working in and making progress is on energy availability and pricing. One challenge we face is that we have a very limited inventory from our existing hydro resources over the next 1 to 3 years due to our forward sales. Those are the long-term contracts that I mentioned at the beginning. We can offset this by purchasing market power to provide service and pass that through to the customers. But those market purchasers would require providing some ancillary services, which are under development, as well as things like credit support and those various things in order to utilize a market purchase for serving a cryptocurrency load. We also have a unique situation as far as pricing goes. Right now, the wholesale rates in the next about 5 years forecast are about equal to our cost of service rates. So from that perspective, it's a good time to talk about market rates because there isn't a huge impact to the customer with that forecast window. Just a little bit more about our planning for our wholesale market program. So this graph illustrates our inventory in a stressed water year, which is a 1 in 20 water year. This is the look that we use for planning. So our generation is the red line along the top in those particular years. And we plan for local load down here in the red. So this is our local growth. It does have the normal growth factors built in as well as a bit of cryptocurrency load. So we're not entirely ignoring what we see to be the future of Chelan County. But what we don't have are blocks of 50 or 100 megawatts available. The two blue lines here are our forward market purchases or sales. Sorry, the dark being the longer term, and the lighter blue a shorter term. But even those are 5, 10 plus year contracts for power. So these first few years here, we're sold up pretty tight. We are continuing to work on the pricing structures, and that'll be one of our areas of discussion with our with you all as we move forward. So the next area we've been working on is our infrastructure or our assets. So in transmission and distribution, this is the system that delivers the power from the generating facilities to your various businesses. We're evaluating that capacity availability in areas where we would not have to make new investments. So looking at, if someone called and said, where could I locate? We could provide some information in those situations. We are assuming room for organic or non-cryptocurrency load growth in the 5-year window for distribution and the 10-year window for transmission. And these are based on the timelines that are required to build additional capacity in those areas. These slides that you're about to see next do not include existing HDL requests that are not connected. So any of those that are on hold for the moratorium are not considered in these. So these maps would be able to inform, if you put in an application, the reality of, whether or not that application might go through. So first we'll talk about our transmission system. This is the high voltage portion of the delivery. This is the first lines that come out of the generating facilities. So our transmission group has done a great amount of work in understanding the capacity available and refining it really. So we've got 3 regions on this map. There's kind of the northern end of our territory up here in the red and yellow are areas where our system doesn't currently have a significant amount of excess capacity. It has capacity for standard local growth, but as far as large 10, 15 megawatt connections, it does not have capacity for those. In the area north of Leavenworth, which is in the red, we've found that the transmission lines that serve that area, the locations that they're built on and the fact that they're kind of out in the wilderness make it infeasible to reconstruct or build bigger transmission lines. So that's an area that we consider to be an infeasible area for cryptocurrency loads. This yellow area that extends basically north of Rocky Reach Dam, these transmission lines are all at capacity or forecasted to be at capacity or not able to take significant single point load growth. They could be rebuilt, but it is a significant cost. I guess our rule of thumb with transmission is $1 million a mile. And that's just for the line. So then we have down here in the bottom, it's a smaller area, but this is the more densely populated area of the community. So it's not a surprise that we do have potential capacity kind of in this area from the Malaga up north through Wenatchee to Monitor. We do continue to do studies in this area, and that information will be forthcoming at a future board presentation. This is just the transmission level. This is not a distribution. So when you get down into the next layer, which is distribution substations, they are the main component of transforming voltage down into a more usable level for a customer. I'm sorry, I think this map is probably very hard to see in the back, but what you see here is several dots of different sizes and different colors. So the size of the dot, these are 6 of our substations where we forecast to have availability for cryptocurrency loads. These are all less than 5 megawatts availability at these stations. The size of the dot represents the potential amount of capacity at that station. So a smaller dot has less capacity, a larger dot potentially has more. The greenish colored dots are ones we think are currently available, and the blue is one we forecast to be available in the next couple of years. One thing to note about substations is that we typically have 4 lines that come out of a substation, which means that a substation itself may have some capacity, but that doesn't mean it's available at a single point of delivery. So it could be, half of it's available on the west side of the substation and half of it's available on the east side. So not to assume that there's a single location where a person could get all of the capacity for that substation. For these situations, connecting into a service such as this, all regular line extension costs would be required, and various upfront charges that we would have established previously. We are, as mentioned, discussing rates and contract mechanisms, as well as the definitions associated with high-density loads, and evaluating lowering that contract rate schedule threshold to something less than 5 megawatts because of the discussion on energy availability. So those are all things that continue to evolve in this area. So I mentioned that previous slide was for loads under 5 megawatts. We do not currently have anywhere in our system that's capable of serving from a substation a load over 5 megawatts. So any connections at a load over 5, thinking back to this map, so any of those connections kind of in this green area over 5 megawatts would require substation construction. And we are evaluating several options. A few of them are listed here. One being that the district would construct the substation, and the customer would have to pay for that. And once it's scheduled and sited, it typically runs $3 to $5 million with a 3 to 5 year timeline for design and construction. So we found the challenging portion of that is typically the siting of the substation. So it has a significant impact on timeline. The second option here is that the requester could facilitate and fund the construction, and likely would be operated by the district. Those would have to be built to district standards and specifications in those situations. And cost and timeline are all interplay with each other in an option like that. So a faster construction typically has a higher cost. And then option 3 is, of course, just to wait until the district's plan construction timelines as we go forward. So in summary of these slides on transmission distribution, we do continue to work on this, and we'll bring more information to the board in future meetings. We have pockets of availability in our transmission system, which is a good thing. We do, however, have areas of severe constraint, so that will further inform potential customers as to where the best place to site services would be. On our distribution system, there are a few areas with small amounts of capacity, but for the most part, throughout the county, it would require distribution construction to serve cryptocurrency expansion. So the fourth area where we've made progress is in coordination with the local planning entities. So we continue to work with the county and other municipal agencies on their planning and coordination or zoning efforts that are underway. Communicating to them, well, we plan to communicate with them on the areas where we have capacity available and work together kind of on a plan going forward with zoning. Early indications that we've heard are that the cryptocurrency in residential areas is not desired. In using growth capacity for mining limits that local growth flexibility. So one reason why we've included in our plans the growth factors as well. So next steps, things that we continue to be working on are applications. and contracts and cost recovery approaches, so those efforts will continue. Defining the processes and rates to support those market level purchases, so where we would buy power on behalf of the customer in the market, and ensuring all the risk on those is borne by the cryptocurrency customer. We're also refining that analysis for location of in our transmission of that availability. We, as a next step, plan to engage with our cryptocurrency applicants. I've reached out to the over 5 megawatt requests already to have those discussions and determine their level of interest, given some of this information on the pricing structure and the inventory in our system. With that, I'll take any questions from the commission. Turn it over to Commissioner Bowles for hearing.
Commissioner, Mr. Smith.
Yes, you indicated that you'd reached out to those applicants in excess of 5 megawatts. How many of those applicants are there?
There are 3 or 4.
Okay,
not very
so
many.
it's not very many.
Yeah.
Okay, but they asked for a lot of capacity.
Yeah, I think there are 3 applicants, 4 locations.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'd like to give Steve Wright the opportunity to do a summary.
Well, I just want to talk for a minute about what we've learned in the past few months. Really, a lot of this Lindsay said, but I want to try to highlight it in terms of where your comments might go. First of all, I think we've concluded that the definition that we've been using for high-density loads is not adequate, and we need to come up with a new definition that's focused on cryptocurrency mining. Second, we really don't have much energy inventory available to sell. And so what we would need to do if we're selling is most likely make purchases from the market and then bring them into the county. In order to do that, we would have to have ancillary services that are necessary in order to make it a reliable product. We do not have those services available today. We have not made market purchases and brought them into the county. So it would require a new set of services to be developed. We think that's possible. We think we could be creative and come up with a way to do that. And we would have to get the pricing right for that. So that's work still to come. Third, so take the transmission availability, and basically what we're saying is there are parts of the county that are just no way. You know, you want to go there, we're not interested. We will not be able to build transmission in order to be able to serve that. There's a second part of the county in which it would be very expensive to build new transmission, and we would be saying to cryptocurrency miners, you have to pay for this if you want us to go there, and you're probably going to have to plan on a pretty long period before we could build new transmission into those areas. I'd be surprised if you could do it in less than 5 years, candidly. Third, we do have some places in the county where we have some transmission availability, and that we can talk to you about those. We need to do more work, though, because that green zone that you saw up there that basically stretches from north of the city to south of the city, there will be different amounts of transmission available in different places within that zone. We just haven't been able to advance the work enough yet to be able to say exactly where are the places that there is more versus less. Third, so we do have some distribution capability, but when we talk about distribution capability on a substation, it's not likely to be more than 4 megawatts. These are not going to be big places where you could build lots of cryptocurrency. And I'm going to tell you that I have a fair amount of reservation about the idea that we would make all of that available, and within a few years we might use up all of that capacity. Because that would put us in the position of having to build many, many 12, 15 substations in a very short period of time. It's difficult for us to be successful at that in order to maintain reliability. So this distribution capacity issue is probably going to be the primary limiter in terms of what we are able to accomplish here. What we want to do now, once we've taken the public comment, et cetera, is we're trying to figure out whether what candidly to a utility, when you get this much load in a short period of time, kind of looks like lemons. Is there a way to turn it into lemonade? So is there something here that will meet those 2 tests that I put at the beginning? Enhancing the quality of life for people in the county, best value for the most people for the longest period of time. It's possible that could happen with the right kind of energy inventory and market purchases, combined with the right places for transmission, combined with probably some distribution builds. But all of that will only happen if there are willing counterparties who candidly are going to put a fair amount of money, probably most of it, if not all of it, up front. So in terms of where we're going from here after this is we will want to engage with the folks who are interested in locating in Chelan County to say, these are the types of terms and conditions that would make this possibly turn into lemonade for us. We want to know whether that's of interest to you. If it's not of interest, then we can stop and go back to doing our day jobs. And candidly, we had a huge amount of work we were trying to accomplish this year. This year was supposed to be our largest capital investment going back to the construction of the dams. And that right now is at risk because of all of this work that's going into this issue. So we need to figure out, is this on the terms that we're interested in, are there folks who are interested in proceeding? And if not, please let us know, because it would sure make things a lot easier here in terms of trying to accomplish the fundamental mission that we've got. With that, send it back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments before we begin to take public comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Wendell will put the microphone here at the front. Please come forward, state your name, your address, so we give you 3-4 minutes. And let's keep rotating through so we have the opportunity in a reasonable length of time to give everyone the chance to speak. So who would like to be that first person to get this started?
My name is Jean Poyer. I live in Kashmir, Washington. Address to use is P.O. Box 228 because even UPS doesn't come to my house. Is there anything else? I appreciate the PUD very much. I take my utility bill and I times it by 4 every time I see it because that is the normal rate that most people would pay. And I have had great service and encounters with the PUD personnel. I'm concerned about this because, for one, water, I disagree with the PUD. Water is not renewable. It's a more precious commodity in our world all the time. And how we use our energy here is critical. I think the world is probably watching this situation in our little tiny county with cryptocurrency right now, and it's making me pretty uncomfortable with our dams and things. So you talk about quality of life in Chelan County. I look at Alcoa. I wasn't real happy with Alcoa, but at least with the deal they had, they gave back to the community. They put solar panels up. They employed a lot of people. And when I look at all the things I've tried to learn about cryptocurrency, I don't see that it serves the community. It serves a very small few, and it's basically cyber gambling. You have a lot of energy and computers out there running all the time, hoping to make that hit on money. And I just think that water is too precious, and we don't need to spend our resources this way. So I support you to continue the moratorium. Maybe there is a miracle like solutionary rail for new transmission lines and new renewable energy to come into this. But for now, I just encourage you to keep the moratorium on and make sure that whatever we do with our energy, it serves the community, it serves the world, and yes, thank you. Who does this serve?
Ms. Poyer, thank you.
Commission. Denton Meyer, several businesses here in town. The address, interested in South Chelan Street. This is the old Conrad Rose Mansion, the Jones & Jones funeral home that basically sat empty for the past 10 years. We took it upon ourselves to purchase the property and an extensive renovation for 2 of our companies because we are going to need a lot more space. We have a company that does a lot of business locally, and another company that does a lot of business outside the area. in the initial plans of looking at this building and the viability of spending the money, significant money on renovation, was the thought of being able to do cryptocurrency mining down in the basement of this building, below grade level from the street. In the fact that the building is basically being gutted and this parking lot and whatnot around it, we have the opportunity to utilize the byproduct of cryptocurrency, which is heat, in an interesting manner. One would be using high efficiency VRF system and glycol loops to recover that heat, to be able to 9 months out of the year where it's colder here in the valley, to utilize that heat and redistribute it inside the building, increasing the efficiency of the building. The other thing, if there's enough excess heat with that, would also be able to do glycol loops underneath the new parking lot and new sidewalk, which means not having to spend the money on snow removal and having a sidewalk that's always clear for pedestrians. In that regard, as far as lifestyle, the thought of one of the big contributing factors of locating and the interest in that building is within just a few short years, that building, we will have it at capacity, which is at least 100 employees right in the downtown core. And what that means for the walkability of the downtown, all the businesses downtown, having an extra 100 people down there on a daily basis, it's a big thing. So looking at crypto as in a new light as far as being holistic, maybe utilizing basements, increasing the viability of downtown buildings, that's what I'd like you to consider.
Mr. Meyer, thank you.
So may we?
Yes, yes, you may.
Back then, thank you. So is this on? Yeah, that's on. So Denton, right?
Yeah.
You said within 10 years you may employ 100 people?
Probably within 2.
Within 2. Help me with what those employees would do.
So one of our fastest growing business is Lakewood PRM. It's a software as a service for the dental industry. What's interesting is we are hiring about on the pace of 1 person per week, and have been for the past year. And everything, all the factors pointing forward are at least that. What's great is living wage. The cryptocurrency would also help us get to the point where we could afford better 401k plans, all that type of stuff, just because of how it could affect the building. Also, this is a set of younger, typical demographic, which usually leaves the area in search of jobs and stuff elsewhere. We're retaining and actually bringing some of those into the valley.
So the idea is your cryptocurrency would then support other businesses in that center.
Yeah. So the building as a whole and costs associated it, plus the income from that, makes both businesses that much more healthy as far as cash flow. And we take pride in what we provide our employees.
Thank you.
Denton, would you mind just sharing the other technological companies that are your partners in that building?
Yeah, our other business is Firefly Technologies, which is basically outsourced IT services that founded back in 1992.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, that's a pretty good pit stop. It's a good time on that one. Thank you.
Oh, my name's Jim Raynaud. I'm a resident of Chelan County, and I run a business here. I was confused many years ago, a couple of decades back. I was involved my firm does construction. I asked management of PUD what this super good sense system was all about. Why are we investing so much money? Management informed me the reason for this and other conservation measures that you guys engage in which I'm in the remodel business as well. We do your weatherization stuff from time to time. Pardon me. But the reason you guys do this stuff is so that you will save power here, which you can sell out of the market at 5 to 10 times the price, giving the customers who live here a better price on electricity. So now, while I'm not an anti-cryptocurrency person, in fact, I'm glad to see it on the marketplace, the question is whether or not subsidizing them by us having higher rates is what you're going to end up doing here. And I think that's the real question you guys need to be asking yourself. There may be things that you're not telling us which would weigh into this decision, such as you talk about your build-out costs, and you're obviously looking at future infrastructure needs that you have, and maybe you're thinking that these crypto miners are going to help you pay for your future infrastructure needs. That's something we can't weigh here because you haven't given us very much information about it. There's also some possibility that utilizing the PUD's backbone in the internet is being used by these crypto miners, and that benefits the PUD and your customers in some way that you haven't identified yet. But in general, the only reason I can see why we consumers in Chelan County would want to support the cryptocurrency mining that's going on is if, in fact, it benefits us in some way. I don't think we should be subsidizing. So one of the ways it could benefit is if you create jobs here. The last gentleman speaking, indicated he was going to create 100 jobs. Well, I'm in the construction industry. That happens when you got a lot of programmers doing stuff. I happen to be kind of a geek. I know a little bit about that. But that's not what I see when we build crypto mining or data mining services, computer farms. That's not what we see. I see a small number of people involved in the construction. 1 or 2 out-of-town technical people come in to run it when it's built, and 1 or 2 local people come in and clean up. And that's the benefit to Chelan County. So this man's mining operation may give him a leg up to start his business model. But the 100 employees are not due to cryptocurrency. They're due to something else he's doing. And I think that's the way you guys ought to be looking at the decision you make about this. I don't know why we're going to subsidize cryptocurrency if it's not very close to the market rate. And this idea of buying power out of the market and bringing it here is insane. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bryce Greenfield. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Genesis Block Holdings, a technology firm based in New York. I live here in Douglas County, actually. I've been involved in cryptocurrency for about a year now here in the Valley, and my efforts largely center around construction of mining facilities and hosting of other people's mining rigs. So I don't want to bore you with some long diatribe here on crypto. I think you're all fairly well versed in it. But I think I would like to just basically elucidate a few of these broader points that I think a lot of the people here may not get from my standpoint. When a lot of folks here are very focused on the rate, what they pay for electricity staying the same and not being run up by, consuming that power locally and not retaining that profit from selling it on the open market. I understand that, and I appreciate that. I pay an electricity bill, too. I have no interest in doing that. But what I would like to ask, or basically posit to the community here is, how many jobs are created when those kilowatts are sent offshore, out of the valley? I mean, they're sold, great. The money's earned by someone. How many of those jobs are created from selling those kilowatts? I don't know the number, but I don't see them dancing about. So whether a crypto miner creates 1 job or 10, to me at this stage seems a little irrelevant unless the case can be made, well, look, we create this many jobs per kilowatt hour sent offshore. I think that's a mismanagement of message. And I think a lot of this animosity from one group to the other is centered around a breakdown in communication. This big spooky thing, crypto, comes across as online gambling to some people. That's absolutely not what it is, but unless we all manage that message together, we work together, this is all going to collapse. One of the other high-level things I'd like to say is we as a community have the opportunity to let outside investment build our infrastructure for us. I think a lot of us agree that crypto mining in the sense that it is today will not be the sense that it is even in 5 years from today, maybe 10 years, pick a time. What you're going to be left with is all of that transmission infrastructure paid for from outside dollars that local ratepayers aren't going to have to pay for because those miners are going to pick up and leave at some point. I think that is what I think a lot of people would agree will happen eventually. So I think there is a very strong tangible benefit from entertaining this kind of outside investment. I think the community stands to gain tremendously from that. From a more personal aspect, from what I've encountered here, when I'm trying to, let's say, build out a mining facility here, I approach the PUD and I say, look, I'm interested in this property. How much electricity can I get and for what price? And I don't care if that price includes build out through the substation. I just don't. All I need to know is the actual price that you're going to charge me so that I can go to the investors and say, look, this is the total price tag. This is what, 1 minute. This is what I can get for the dollar. And either that is or is not economical. And either we will or we won't make that investment. But unless I can make that argument, I can't do that. So I can't even entertain the option of doing business here in Chelan County. So that's a fundamental thing you got to get right. And so that, up to this point, is almost wholly absent because I've been unable to get those kinds of numbers. And so I'll cut it off there. But this is just some of my general high-level opinions on the overthink. I plan to stay here. I grew up here. I want to raise my kids here. I'm not going to build out some facility and skate with the profits like I'm some kind of bank robber, right? I plan on investing here like many of the other people do. We're not robbers. We're here to build something in a community that desperately needs jobs, especially for younger folks that are leaving for other places. This is the way to do that. And you're going to get tax money from that. You're going to get all the ancillary benefits from people coming in and building houses and all of that. You all understand that. But so, end rant. Thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any comments, questions? Okay, thank you. Sir.
Hello, my name is Greg Bennett. I'm the founder and chairman of Skate Ventures, and we're a startup mining company and a longer term, hopefully a significant data center here based in Wenatchee. Those who got hurt the most in the moratorium were those parties who had purchased hardware with the expectation to mine and now can't. Without being able to plug in, there's no way to recover their investment. The clock keeps ticking every day, and hardware becomes less valuable every day. The life of a mining piece of hardware today is not measured in years anymore. It's measured in months. A lot of recent changes in the marketplace have made it even a half-life of even 3 months to 6 months. So some of the desperation I think you might hear from the audience is those people who own hardware have no place to plug it in with an expectation they were going to plug it in a reasonable period of time. I'm an experienced startup investor. I've been vice chair of the Seattle Alliance of Angels for 10 years. It is the oldest and largest angel group in the Pacific Northwest, and I have a summer house up in Orondo, in the Twin W. The Alliance of Angels is a group of 140 mostly technology investors from the Seattle area, and I convinced some of them that we should do something here. So assessing a business opportunity, because that's what I do, I convinced fellow angels to become interested in a potential mining and hosting operation here. We leased half of the Philippi Fruit Warehouse building across from the PUD on 5th Street, which is light industrial zone. Checked all the boxes. Had some preliminary discussions with the PUD staff for 0.5 megawatts, a very modest amount in the overall stack of things. And all seemed to be going well within the availability and timing of PUD operations. There was power available, at least informal power available, and there was some discussion about what direction should it come from. We filed a formal application on February 23rd for 0.5 megawatts and paid fees. Then I made a major mistake that has cost me dearly. I went out and ordered the hardware. Based on these, I raised the money, ordered the hardware, and because of the stiff upfront HDL fees, time lag for internal electrical buildup, lead time to receive hardware, and the short functional life of the hardware itself, I'm an operator. I need to be fully operational the second I receive the hardware and the power. Little did I know the application was really on hold a second, and perhaps even before the second I submitted. After a number of "I'll get back to you" conversations, the moratorium was announced on March 19th. 5 long weeks and almost no communication back and forth about where our application was in the process. In these last 3 months, I've lost tens of thousands, if not more of dollars, and my investors have lost that, as the value of the hardware goes down and depreciates rapidly. You could say that's a part of the risk of doing business. And part of me says that's right. I do this for a living, so I kind of accept it going back and forth. But I do feel somewhat cheated. I follow all the rules, personally checked beforehand with PUD processes, filed proper applications, went into light industrial zone buildings, secured the property, then got caught up in a moratorium, which was well under internal discussion while my applications and fees were being processed. In my opinion, the PUD should not have accepted my application. I'd be a lot wealthier man today because of it. It was not morally the right thing to do and has directly caused me great financial harm. If you wanted to slow things down, you should have stopped receiving applications, not stopped processing existing applications. I ask you now to consider lifting the moratorium for us small players, those under 5 megawatts. We are nit in the overall scheme of things, a small fraction of from what you've seen from before.
30 seconds.
And the ones that the moratorium has hurt the most. This won't begin to recover the amount of money that my investors have lost so far, but will get us on a path to recovering something and getting us on a path to become a viable Wenatchee-based business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Thank you. Comments, questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Patterson, and I live at 150 Kestrel Lane in Manson. I just wanted to start by reiterating a few of the obvious potential reasons for the PUD not to serve cryptocurrency miners. The fact that the rates for existing customers could increase, the stability of the cryptocurrency mining industry is unproven and highly dependent on the price of cryptocurrency. It does make it impossible for the PUD to plan for future growth because cryptocurrency growth could be explosive or it could fizzle out. And from an ethical perspective, cryptocurrency transactions are often associated with illegal sales since they're anonymous to the outside world. The PUD notes in its 2015 strategic plan that planning was based on answering the following question. He was reiterated a couple times already. How could we create the best value for the most people for the longest period of time? Serving cryptocurrency miners would not be an appropriate response to this question. In addition to these obvious issues, I believe there's a regulatory hurdle that must be addressed first. So I'm going to take this in a different direction that I haven't heard anybody talk about yet. Before I elaborate, I want to point out that I was an air quality consultant in the Pacific Northwest for over 25 years before I recently retired, and I'm very familiar with the issues I'm about to discuss. At a recent PUD presentation in Manson, the PUD pointed out that they have about 220 megawatts of new service requests for cryptocurrency miners, which actually exceeds the current sales to all retail customers currently. If all 220 megawatts were granted, the PUD would have to purchase this amount on the open market, as people have talked about already today, since all the current surplus electricity is under contract. The PUD also confirmed that these purchases would be primarily from fossil fuel electrical generators, because that's what you get at the incremental top of the food chain for new purchases. This would result in an environmental impact. Fossil fuel generating plants emit nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, carbon monoxide, hazardous air pollutants, and greenhouse gases. Now, I believe that if the PUD were to decide to grant service to cryptocurrency miners as a group, this would trigger the need for an environmental impact statement under the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, to determine the significance of the resulting environmental impact. This is known as a cumulative impact analysis. Furthermore, I believe that the environmental impact statement would show a significant environmental impact, which has regulatory consequences. Take greenhouse gas emissions as an example. Using a relatively efficient combined cycle natural gas power plant as a benchmark for purchased power, 220 megawatts of continuous power use would generate about 700,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year. The Washington State Department of Ecology provides SEPA guidance suggesting that 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year might serve as a threshold for assessing significance. So, new CO2 equivalent emissions just to serve the current cryptocurrency request would be roughly 28 times that level, making it impossible to say that this decision wouldn't have a significant environmental impact.
30 seconds.
Other air pollutant emissions would also need to be similarly assessed. I therefore assert that an environmental impact statement must be prepared by the PUD in accordance with SEPA rules before making a decision to serve cryptocurrency miners. If the environmental impact statement demonstrates a significant environmental impact, the PUD must figure out how to mitigate these impacts or deny service in accordance with SEPA law. Thank you.
Brian, thank you. Commissioners? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Cox. I live here in Wenatchee, P.O. Box 4469. I work for Washington State Department.
What's your first name? I didn't get it.
Matthew Cox.
Kathy, thank
I'm a
you.
little nervous, so I talk a little fast.
That's
You should
all
hear me at my safety meetings. I work for the Washington State Department of Transportation, and I just start rambling on, so I'll keep it short. I don't think that the cryptocurrency miners, I appreciate your vision that you were showing about how they'd have to pay for the cost up front, because it shouldn't be built on the back of the people who live here. I know it was a pretty big blow to the citizens of Wenatchee when Alcoa shut down. And that was, and you can't say they don't use a small amount of power. They use a lot of power to melt down and harvest that aluminum. So I guess what I'm saying is that we shouldn't suffer because they're wanting to consume a lot of power just to, chunk the blockchain into the currency that they desire to have for themselves. It's not like the server farms we have in Quincy. In Quincy, they have these giant server farms. They service a lot of customers for each server. You can have a server that has, servers big enough, can have 196 virtual servers on it that service different people's websites that actually generate a lot. And they've actually provided jobs to those server farms. I have friends who actually work for Schmidt Electric that they're not installing like these massive professional-looking buildings that are the server farms that you see like for Google or for Microsoft. They're installing like cargo containers full of tons of power to put these computers in. Where the doors are shut, they walk away, these things can continue to chunk and do their thing that they do. It's just not there. I just don't see it. And what I see is a demand from us, from you, to do something that isn't really a benefit to the community as a whole. I mean, if they're putting them in cargo containers, I don't know. It seems like the lowest possible product, lowest possible install to get as much as they can out of it because it is such a volatile currency. That's really all I had. Though I did find it a little funny, though. I was on the Genesis website last night, and they seem to charge in U.S. dollars and not in the Bitcoins themselves, which kind of tells me they don't have a lot of faith in the currency itself. They're charging U.S. dollars for what they do. Since they're a cloud-based number cruncher for Bitcoin, you can rent their services. You don't have to actually buy the hardware themselves. That's kind of what they're in business of. And if they're only accepting U.S. dollars, that doesn't give me a lot of faith that they have faith in what they're actually servicing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Markham Hurd, and I own property in Peshastin, the Peshastin Town Center, 10090 Main Street. Also have a residence there in Peshastin, and I'm back and forth. I'm a 206er. Please don't anybody spit. I'm to talk to you today kind of from a landlord perspective. To echo a gentleman earlier, I work in the environmental industry. I work with the big data centers in Quincy in health and safety and environment. I get it. I get the concern for that. I'm more talking about medium to small size crypto mining. And when I walked into this room, and I was a little bit late because, as you guys know, Blewett Pass was closed. Did I mention I was a 206er? Anyway, when I walk in here, one quick thing. Can you guys just reach out to your neighbor and say hello? Everybody looks a little grumpy in here. Just say hi to your neighbor. Reach to your neighbor and say hi. Please, for me. I love it. Because there's two different sides of the fence here. Obviously, residents are concerned for power going up. Crypto miners who are either local or imported, obviously they want to create a living for themselves, their family, they want to move here, they want to see the expansion. To me, there's got to be a happy medium in there. And I want to tell you a story why. I was in Denver, Colorado, 3 weeks ago, flying back from my father. And gets me all choked up. There was a little lady in line behind me. You can see I have a hard time talking to people. So, you know, I was talking to the little old lady behind me, beautiful young lady. And I said, "Where are you going?" And she said, "I'm going to Wenatchee, Washington." I said, "Why are you going to Wenatchee?" "Oh, honey, that's the cryptocurrency mining capital of America. Can you imagine what that place is going to do in the next few years?" And that hit me. I have tenants in my building that started 8 months ago. By the book miners. Everything's permitted, everything's there. They're growing, they're wanting to grow. We had a application in for more power coming into the building, not only to service the crypto people, but also to serve 2 other tenants in my building who have gone from a 1-person show now up to 15 people. So it's not just crypto I want the power for. But they're at a standstill now in the crypto mining, obviously, because they need to make that next step to make it a viable business for them. The permit was in, we were going through the ropes, just like other people, obviously it got stopped. So there's the large crypto mining centers out there, the mini data centers that obviously it's a huge business. It brings in the investors, it brings in some talent, it lets the locals get involved more and create some jobs. But then there's the medium-sized to small-sized people out there that are crypto mining, that when you see the spark in their eyes with what's going on, as I say, this is not just the young folks. This is, you see the spark in my father in the other room when I talk to him about cryptocurrency. Yeah, that's you, Dad, I'm talking about you. It's exciting because, yes, we're the Apple capital, but what's our next step? There's a lot to be grown here, I believe, through the landlords, through the crypto miners, and through the residents, and the service providers, and the restaurants, and the infrastructure, that there's got to be a common ground here for everybody. And if we can create a way for the small to medium people, as the gentleman before me said, to move, or two before, sorry, to move forward with what they're doing to create their income, and yes, they'll have to pay for it. Yes, the rates may go up for them. Should it go up for the residents? No, right? Because this is their business. Now, it's going to benefit everybody, I believe, in the long run. It benefits the landlords, it benefits the miners, it benefits the timekeepers, it benefits everybody around here. That's my perspective as a landlord, is to find a way to not freeze it for another 4 months. These people have to make a living. Let's let the people who have done it by the book continue at an incremental growth and review the big picture as it's needed. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, please.
Hello, my name is Andrew.
Let's hold just a second. Your microphone's not going.
Oh, you don't want to have it to me.
Yep, it's fine. Just hold it.
Testing.
All right.
Sorry, my name is Andrew. And my post office box is, or my address is 1015 Fillmore Street. I'm from San Francisco. Anyway, I moved here about 2 months ago from San Francisco. And I was very excited to set up a crypto mining business here, but I found that I've been stuck because of the regulations and the moratorium with the PUD. So it's caused me to feel a little bit upset, a little bit disappointed because I have, again, followed the rules. And so as I've learned more in the last couple months, I've understood more about why the moratorium had been put in place. But I know that there was also the wiring, the burn.
Oh, burn down from the wiring.
Okay, there was the burn down, it was burning out the wires, too much load, and it was impacting the community. And so some people who lived here had complained about it,
They felt like big companies were coming and taking over and not paying their fair share. So I feel like one solution I would even like to propose is to help with residential housing to have smaller cryptocurrency, or as the businesses proceed, that there would be a payback to the residences who are in the area to help help them and to help keep the value of your value of the most benefit for all. I'd like to encourage you to increase your vision for that. One of the reasons that I set up this crypto mining business was to save money, and then I'd like to provide more income opportunities for the deaf community, of which I'm a part of. So I'm hoping that we can see us work together to come up with solutions that will work for everyone. And maybe when people see what's happening here in Wenatchee, my hometown of California, can benefit from the solutions that we find together, and that California could see some growth and some benefit from what they've done. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Please share with Andrew our thanks.
Hello. Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for having me speak here today. My name's Lauren Meehey. I'm General Manager for Zoom Hash, P.O. Box 362, Indiana, Washington, 98822. First thing I'd want to just clarify is we need to separate the difference between a mining operation and a co-location or hosting business. That is totally a different mindset and a different investment parameter between both. If you're going in for co-location, you actually aren't mining for yourself, but you're actually serving other customers. That means that we have to have long-term investments in infrastructure that we're going to operate for multiple years. Personally, before I took on this job, I built a 0.5 megawatt facility over in Douglas County, and it took me 4 years to finally pay it back to its actually operating cash flow positive. So those are the type of long-term commitments. I'm renewing another 5-year lease going forward. Now, into Zoom Hash, I think, obviously the community needs to be well served with the jobs and bringing benefit to the community. We hire over 17 full-time employees. Most of them are making well over the state average, and we're actually looking to expand. Another area is that we've actually hired a recent graduate from Wenatchee Valley Community College, with another one potentially being hired for our project over in Quincy. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in PUD electrical fees per year into the PUD just in this county alone. And we have facilities in all of the counties, and also millions of dollars with our electrical contractors and other various vendors that are all locally based and money that benefits the community. So I think it's really important for us to obviously find a balance, but also, we're making significant investments, and this type of investments are going to take, like right now, we're looking at, next 5 to 7 years of operating at this staffing level and increasing with another project in Quincy coming online in June, and then potentially another one in Moses Lake, and then also looking at how we deal with the resource allocation in the community, looking back at Chelan County, maybe having a designated zone or area like Mr. Manager Wright was speaking of where we can put our resources and maybe do long-term commitments, long-term contracts. So you guys know there's the stability, because yes, we can't have a lot of these kind of transient miners or assets that are being abandoned and going forward. And for the mining community, that is one of the issues. But you got to think about this. Bitcoin is just one cryptocurrency. It's kind of the blue chip cryptocurrency. But there's right now, even from the last time I spoke in front of this body, there's 5 viable cryptocurrencies that are having long-term investments. And that wasn't even the case. So if anything, for people that are hosting, providing as a vendor or service provider like the data centers in Quincy, our actual demand, we're actually outstripping our demand for the valley. So we're trying to figure out how can we utilize our resources best in this valley with the diversity of different cryptocurrencies, but also looking where we can invest in other places and kind of keep on, creating jobs and building resources and infrastructure. So this is for us, it's a long-term strategy. The people that are backing us are not in this for like the short term. These are things that are going to be here, hopefully 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And just on a personal note, since the last time I spoke here, I've purchased a house here. My entire family's moved over here. involved with, civic duties. So this is a big draw for the area, not just on just the economics, but just bringing a lot of
30
culture
seconds.
and diversity into the area, which I think will create opportunities for the younger generation in the future on top of our kind of core agricultural base.
Thank you. It's a little bit of deja vu, huh?
Deja vu.
I have a
Commissioner Congdon.
a comment, I guess, for Lauren. It's Lauren, right? Yeah, we've heard from you before. So I guess I'm just sitting here scratching my head. You know, you talk about, and I know you're solid and stable and have been here for quite a while, but when you talk about a long-term investment, and I look at the volatility of Bitcoin, and Ethereum are the only two that I ever watch. How do you pencil that in? How do you factor that into making a long-term investment?
Well, at the end of the day, you have to put skin in the game. So you just have to purchase it because the only way you can have reliable service to be able to service these long-term contracts. You have to have a core belief in the cryptocurrency and the peer-to-peer distributed ledger technology blockchain. That's very important. And yeah, if you don't have those two convictions, probably not the right industry for you to be involved with. So you have to kind of be a true believer in that sense. But I think that no matter what happens to Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin or any of these things, the idea of having kind of math govern like a financial asset that can be transparently and regulated digitally without having as much human intervention is an idea that I think that seeds deeply planted and will continually be reinvented and innovated. And even when if let's say Bitcoin fails tomorrow, something else would come up and say, oh, that was the problem, and this is how we solve it. And then where do we have infrastructure, the ability to service that immediately? So these kind of investments going forward will be used for something. I can't tell you in the future what it will be used for, but I guarantee it will be used for something. And maybe in the future, all cryptocurrencies fail. Well, then we're probably going to turn them into data centers. They can do like, backup data, disaster recovery. There's lots of different areas, maybe even robotics, 3D printing. I mean, large amounts of power are going to be used for something in these wherever we place the resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's a believer.
Hi, my name is Drew Abercrombie, Citation Loop.
Could you say that?
Drew Abercrombie.
Thank you, Drew.
I am a residential consumer, and I've been in the mining industry more of a hobby for the last 7-8 years. And I built small machines that just use multiple graphics cards. And I'm just a small player caught up in the bigger scheme of things. I believe that the large facilities, we should probably keep the ones that are 5 megawatts. Maybe we should just keep our max capacity at no more than 5 megawatts. That'll help keep costs low for everybody as well as the consumers, and that will help keep the power also in the community as well. You still have the excess more and sell on the market. But since I've been doing this, I've had no problem with electricity. At least I live in a newer development. I use less than 5,000 watts continuous, and I also have solar panels on my house. So as a personal reference, I'm not much of a burden. So I think maybe we should also help the lower people like myself that do this to also help subsidize their income well, mine is student loans. I have 85,000 student loans I have to pay, and cryptocurrency mining with my few machines helps pay that. So help leave the little guys, maybe cap their max capacity, keep it below 5,000, and then you can do it in your residential area. That's definitely an option to help keep the community members that do this as a way to subsidize their income, keep them going, keep them. So I even had plans of modifying some of my electric to make sure I can distribute the load even better in terms of using 220 over 110. So with the amperage, it cuts it in half, so it's less of a load, so there's less of a fire risk. I have everything hooked up to surge protectors, and I do everything by the electrical book. So I would like to implore you guys to let the small guys mine and worry about the big ones and the people that are doing it unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rich Cole, 4141 Luber Lane, Malaga. Probably a little different version. so it'll be about 2 minutes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I like to think that this Bitcoin power cryptocurrency consumption issue is similar to a wildland fire issue. If there is dry grass to burn from a lightning strike, then it will happen. If there is any cheaper power to be had by these people, they will quickly be to the door to take it as long as it lasts and create very few jobs. Since the Rocky Reach Dam will only put out so much electricity, most of it is spoken for with various long-term contracts, there is only a small amount of power left for the people of Chelan County to have to for their home and local use at reasonable rates. I don't intend for these people to come here and then wonder if I'm going to have to live in a tent this winter. I do know about tent living since I worked for the Forest Service and others a number of years ago. There's no room left for anyone to come here and get around 5 megawatts at a time or lesser amounts. And the next thing one knows, the dam is out of capacity. I'm thinking these people could care less and seem to go to any length to get the power one way or the other. They just go to the next cheaper county and, like locusts, to the next field and do their damage. With the chances of building fires and transformer blow-ups from power demand and expenses of it to the ratepayers of Chelan County, is just not worth allowing these operations to happen. If it has to happen, then a substantial rate of charge should be established that can be adjusted from time to time that would take in consideration the high financial loss of PUD equipment, replacement values, and not counting on what may happen to other buildings. Until this issue is brought under control, and I know the PUD staff and board are working very hard on it, the grass fire scenario will burn. Please immediately get the fire hoses on this issue. As Warren Buffett said recently on Fox Business News, this thing is rat poison. Thank you, and your guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Thanks, Rich. Any questions? Please, thank you.
Hi, guys. My name's Greg Manoli. I'm up at 416 North 1st Street, Chelan. And so I came down. I have a small little site. This was set up by my son, and it's pretty cool. I come from an industry of building hyperscale data centers for across the world. So he approached me, can you put this together for me? And I said, sure, we'll do this on a small scale. Our load is about 10 kW a month. We're real small. We're 2,500 square foot in the facility. We have a 100 amp service panel. We're running at about 80% of that panel right now, maybe a little bit less. The byproduct is I get that heat. I get to heat my hangar, my airplanes. We've had problems with just cracks and everything, so forth. So I guess my question is this, is that I've been allocated a panel within my facility to use. How do I choose that power? Whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's putting air conditioning in there, whether it's putting something in there as heat, where does this line get drawn? Say that you guys have given me power and I can choose to use this power however I want. If I'm going beyond this, then yeah, I would come and say I need an application, so on and so forth. But in this facility, it's like, yeah, if I want to put my heat in there, if I want to put additional equipment, shop equipment, raise the load up, sustain loads, whatever, that's power that has been allocated to me. So again, we don't fit in the Schedule 35. We're small. We're just, we're just 10 kW with a bunch of fans. The facility is built with full heat extraction. It is containment. All the electrical is to code. That's what I do for living. I mean, that's mechanical, electrical, architectural. So it's built in a very robust and very safe way. But it is beyond that panel itself. Everything from that panel out, I look at as that's PUD. You guys gave me this panel, and I can use this. And it's my right to choose how I want to use that in a safe manner. So one of the questions I have is, what are unauthorized loads? What does that mean? We don't fit into the HDL. And when you were talking about unauthorized loads, what does that mean? Is it beyond the service capability of my panel? Is it a power factor of something that I should be aware of because there's nothing stated? And I don't know. I've asked the question. So what is this unauthorized load? So to speak a little bit more, I've had people come over to my facility. They see this thing and they love it. It's small time operation. It pays my bill. It pays help my son take care of the grandkids. I mean, it's money that's coming back into the community. The fever, I had a guy come over and go, you know what? I would love you to build a hangar-style building for me and build this out. I'll drop 150 grand into this right now if we can get permits and make this thing happen. So that level of visibility, and he knows my credentials, what I built in the past. That was pretty telling. That was more money that would go into the community to expansion, to infrastructure, and I'm all about robust infrastructure for you guys. I don't want to see it cook out there. You know, there are sustained loads, the heat will decay product, and so on and so forth. So it's nice to see money come back and improve that infrastructure for you guys. But I kind of want to move back away from this into, what about us small guys like this?
10 seconds, I screwed up.
That's okay. And that's really, you know, my big question is, you gave me a panel, you said I can use power. Why can't I use power? Simple as that. It's allocated, it's there. We're small time operation. We don't fit into the Schedule 35 stuff. Why should we be stopping at this point?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get his last name?
Millie. Greg, was your last name Millie?
Minoli.
Minoli, thank you. Please, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for spending the time and taking our comments. It's greatly appreciated. My name is Dave Solomon. I've been a 20-year resident of Chelan County in Wenatchee, and address is 76 Garmisch Lane, which is out in North Road on Peshastin, just outside of the Leavenworth city limits. What I'd like to do is just give an exhibit before the commissioners. Last July, my wife Karen and I, my comment is more of what's listed right here. Cryptocurrency is in residential areas is not desired. So it's not one of loads, it's one of location. We bought a home, 2.5 acres, looking for peace and quiet, to be out of the city, where we could sit on our porch, listen to birds, and basically have coffee on our front porch. We bought this home from some individuals that had lived in it prior, and they, one of the spouses is a employee of a large cryptocurrency miner in the area. Last November, one of the rent-me storage sheds was delivered to the property. Initially, we were told by the owner it was going to be a storage shed. Shortly after that, the PUD hooked up a high-density load power to the outside, and you will see on it, it's on our side of the property. And I found out that it was going to be a Bitcoin mining operation. I own a financial planning business. I'm novice at understanding cryptocurrency, but what I am aware of is heat and noise and power. So we are concerned, we were just concerned about the noise level, that we would not hear it. I contacted an attorney just to inquire about noise ordinance. They suggested I contact the PUD commissioners, which I did, and they asked me, do they have a conditional use permit? I said, I have no idea. We'll check into it. They looked into it. They determined they did not have a CUP, and I went before the commissioners and I just said, I'm just concerned about the quietness of this. That's all we want. I don't care about load. I don't care about Bitcoin profit. We just bought a very expensive house in the country. I had sent an email out of concern to these people, and they said, we will try to keep, and I've got the email right here, the noise level to a reasonable level. I don't want reasonable level in the country. We are zoned residential out in our area. Angel Hallman of the community development was out. Keith Gaynor's been out. And Hank Lewis, before he left, classified this as an isolated small-scale business, of which these individuals must have a 200-foot setback on the property. What adds insult to injury is in one of their emails, they say we are confident that this noise will not be an issue because we have 2.5 acre buffer, and I can read it, between our properties. And we are very concerned with our closest neighbors, you and Karen. My wife is visiting her children in Australia right now. She's been gone a couple months. We would not have done this if we didn't feel the noise would be an issue. It has been 3 months. I have decibel readings of 38 and 40 consistently 24 hours a day. We cannot sit on our porch, our hot tub, and have devotions, have coffee, wine, or sit in our hot tub without hearing this thing. But the neighbors, because they put the Bitcoin machine, or the Bitcoin data center with 44 miners, 30 feet off our property line, and put the vents, the intake vents on our side with the power. They don't hear it. We have to look at it. We have to see it. They said they got a HDL permit. What they didn't get is to check with the county with a business permit. They have been ordered to comply. It is my desire that the PUD not hook up anybody in a residential area and this be shut down. We are trying to sell our home, one reason because of this, and we have potential buyers that are concerned. Mine it out in the industrial, mine it where you don't hear it, but not in a residential area. And we want this shut down, or we want it moved to where we don't see it. Thank you.
Dave, thank you.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Diogenes Dusoglu. I'm from Miami, Florida. I work for an investment company.
Give me your first name again, please.
Diogenes Dusoglu from Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Just work for an investment company. And I think it's good what is happening now for the moratorium, because when a business is going out, you need to balance as a government, right? And the first is to protect the people. We as an investment firm, we're very interested in the county, but the most important thing is to see more than the volatility or the price of Bitcoin or anything about the market price is the technology that is one step back on it, is the blockchain. With the blockchain is the new way to confirm all the financial transactions, right? I just want to tell you that is a memo. A good thing we need to remember is the 1996 Telecommunication Act is a very historical decision from Clinton when comes the internet and let the people work on it, but they put the rule, and right now the world is what it is because we have the internet. This is the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Denton?
Denton Meyer again. This is, I came back up in direct response for a question that Ms. Congdon had earlier regarding volatility of Bitcoin. A healthy Bitcoin business, mining operation, some people just invest in the Bitcoin. Appreciation, holding it and having appreciation, hoping that it goes at some point is one way. The other way is volatility and currency pair trading, just like the Forex market with fiat currency. The fact that it's volatile, if you took a day trader that deals with fiat currency like Great British Pound against the US dollar, they dream of the volatility of your cryptocurrency. So in my opinion, a real healthy cryptocurrency business is the combination of mining, holding for the future, cashing in some to pay for expenses now, but also utilizing the market. A lot of cryptocurrency businesses like that actually make more money off of the trading than they actually do the mining, but it just helps to create a healthy business.
Thank you. How you predict that, though, I don't know. Leave that to you.
Thank you, Denton. There you go. Please.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Gary Nelson. I'm a retired electrical engineer. When I was at work, I was a chief engineer on a $1 billion electrical project. And I wanted to comment. I'm sort of neutral on the whole issue here today, Bitcoins, whether they're good or bad, and whether the PUD is trying to slow it down or speed it up. The one thing I do remember, though, in my experience, when there's a dynamic environment, the customer's changing and your business is changing and things don't get done properly. Now, just hearing what work you've done already in trying to analyze this problem has tied up your resources in the PUD doing these kinds of things so that you can have a plan. So I would encourage both groups to get together somehow and stabilize the work environment or the contract environment. I would suggest to the Bitcoiners that they set up a Bitcoin association here in town and have a couple key members to speak for them, because there's all kinds of people here, Bitcoiners, the people that use a kilowatt up to those that use 5 or 10 megawatts of power. So get together and work it out together, because it'll enhance both teams. We'll get a better job out of the PUD, and we can get the Bitcoin operation here helping the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mark Straub. I'm here representing Building North Central Washington. We are an organization that represents several hundred builders, developers, tradespeople, and other small businesses throughout North Central Washington. And I want to be clear that we don't necessarily oppose Bitcoin mining per se. However, we do have significant concerns. Our two biggest concerns lie around a couple of issues that we strive to be engaged in, that being affordable housing, as well as economic development. First, with regard to affordable housing, it's no secret that we have an affordable housing crisis in North Central Washington, and it's not getting better. We know that. I've said over and over again that housing affordability is a function of a death by 1,000 cuts. I guess more specifically, unaffordable housing is a death by 1,000 cuts. One of the many components involved is bringing utilities to a raw piece of property and making that a buildable lot. And our concern is in doing this and taking these high density loads, most specifically as it relates to Bitcoin mining, is that going to have an effect on the connection costs moving forward? And I believe that it has to in some way, shape, or form. And that at the entry level for homes, that's a very sensitive, it's more sensitive at the entry level than at the upper level. And that's where we're having our biggest issue right now in the affordability issue, is at the entry level. So that does have, it is a regressive in nature. So that's a concern. And then secondly is moving forward, what will this have an effect in terms of economic development, the capacity to attract and maintain future economic activities above and beyond Bitcoin? That is certainly something that I know that has been mentioned, and it's something that I think that we need to be very mindful of moving forward. So thank you for the opportunity to provide comment. I know this is a very issue with a lot of facets to it, but for our board of directors, these are just a couple of concerns that we wanted to express. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
If you broke it, you buy it. Just kidding.
Okay, my name is Mary Fishburne, and I agree with what he said about affordable housing. I live in Leavenworth, Washington, where a lot of the jobs are just entry level, and we're having a real hard time with housing. As I understood by what you said, Leavenworth is a rather small capacity area for power, or we have a small capacity to produce power. And I know that the new transfer station that's being planned for the Chumstick North Road area, I'd like to know how that's going to affect the possible growth and need for the crypto mining that is in operation on Prowell Road and North Road. And as I understand, there are several others in that area as well. When we first moved to Leavenworth, or up Fox Road, there were only 2 houses on our canyon. Now there's over 40 homes up there because of the view. We have a rapid growth going on with homes in Leavenworth. How is the power going to affect, or the power usage going to affect the power for putting in more and more and more houses in Leavenworth. My other thing that I wanted to say is he was talking about big operations that require a lot of power. So what if they pull the moratorium on just the little small power operations? But how are you going to keep control of this business usage or the power usage? Some of these larger companies are just going to put in more and more and more and more. What's the word I want? For power. And how are you going to control that if they break down a larger operation in many, many, many smaller operations that require less power? It's still going to require the same amount of power. And the more that come in, the more that there's going to be required for the power. And how are you going to say no to some and not be able to say yes to others? I hope I made sense there. Thank you.
You do. Thank you, Mary. Please.
Hello, I'm Gregory Peck, and I am a resident, not a resident, but part-time resident in Douglas County. I kind of, the landlord kind of described, when he described his clients and the people that were coming here to do the mining, I kind of fit one of those profiles. I have a business satellite phone store, and I'm an owner in that company, and I started a new company to come here and do the mining in Douglas County. And I bought 2 abandoned old commercial properties in just past Waterville. And last year I was approved to get a half a megawatt, and I didn't take advantage of that opportunity at that moment because of a mixing of assets. I waited. And then the rhetoric that was coming from Chelan County and what was happening here affected their positions over there. So when somebody said the whole world was looking, a lot of people are looking. Now I can't get the half a megawatt. I'm a small operation, and I'm a crypto enthusiast, and I'm also interested in advocating more for this, the smaller business people, because I think it's a really good opportunity. And it's another form of entrepreneurship. I heard the word scoundrels being used to describe us, and some of that. And I flew out from Florida yesterday to attend your meeting because I thought it was important. I have a very small operation out there now. I have a full-time employee that works to keep the systems running. I know that. Depending on what hardware you choose, sometimes some of them are noisier than others. If you're sticking with the graphic cards and the GPUs, those can be quiet even in a residential neighborhood. But if you're going with the ASIC type, the more specific type hardware, those can be a lot louder. So it depends on which type of hardware the customer is choosing to whether it's going to be a quiet operation or whether it's going to be a louder one. I'm also an environmentalist, and I heard comments from some individuals and I am very concerned about the environment. I think that technology is solving and can solve the needs of energy. I think there's plenty of energy out there. I know that solar and wind is displacing the need for some of the hydroelectric power, and it's also, the amount of energy that solar and wind and geothermal and other sources will eventually displace a lot of what hydroelectric water provides and other sources. So there will be enough energy sources to displace the fossil fuels, which we definitely need to get rid of. I'm a driver of a Tesla vehicle because I believe in electric and I believe in getting off of fossil fuels faster than hopefully we could ever do it. I support driving electric vehicles, and it is the future. There is plenty of energy out there. And it's not a tool for criminals to use. Hundreds of people have been already arrested for participation in fraudulent activities or selling drugs like the Silk Road, because Bitcoin is a ledger system where every transaction is signed
30
by,
seconds.
Thank you. Every transaction is signed by the user. And there's more transparency there than there is with cash. Is still the preferred form of fraud and money laundering. And I would like to recommend that everybody watch a video. It was at a TED conference by a mathematician. His name is Charles Hoskinson. He's a mathematician from Hawaii, and he really lays out the framework of the future of what cryptocurrency is going to do. In 20 years, it should be the impact of what this industry will do is similar to what the internet has done in the last 20 years in accountability, for voting systems, documenting people in the undocumented world, which is about half of the world.
Gregory, thank you.
And I think it has a tremendous future that should be an opportunity, not a problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is that a TED Talk? Is it
Yes.
a TED Talk?
Yeah, Greg Hoskinson has done a TED Talk, and he's a mathematician, and he was a part in starting Ethereum, and he is also a part of Cardano, which is another cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And
Thank
yes.
you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sir.
My name is Reed Brown, and I have 2 properties in Chelan County. I own the old Trinity mine at the top of the county, which has its own hydroelectric plant. And so on one hand, I'm actually considering setting up cryptocurrency mining there. But I have not been convinced to this point that it's economically feasible to do so with the volatility that I see in the mining. I am also a resident at Fish Lake, where I have a residence that is electrically heated. And I really enjoy the 2.7 cent per kilowatt hour rate that I pay. Do you commissioners have any idea if all of your forward contracts were abrogated so that you could supply local power, how much would our rates be locally? Do you have any idea? Has anybody ever done the analysis? I'd just be very curious to know.
What was the question?
In other words, all your forward contracts, you're selling wholesale power at a much at advantageous rates to other states. If those were all abrogated so that you could supply the cryptocurrency industry in Wenatchee, how much would our rates go up?
So just say quickly, we wouldn't do that.
I know you wouldn't. This is a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical.
So we haven't done the analysis
It's a
because we wouldn't
hypothetical.
consider it. And the problem is the analysis is always changing because the forward market is always changing. So whatever
Right.
answer we gave you today would be different tomorrow.
But it would certainly be higher than 2.7
But it would
cents.
certainly be higher.
Okay, so that's a good place to start. I guess the problem that I have with the small people is that they want effectively to use cryptocurrency mining to heat their homes, and I think you're going to have a really hard time. I mean, I understand that you're enforcing the moratorium across the boards. They have a compelling argument. I don't know how to defend that. For the big guys, I think it just comes down to the ratepayers and what you said at the beginning, which is, you know, the best value for the largest group of people in Chelan County. And here's what I'll leave you with. Why don't you guys do the cryptocurrency mining? Because, I mean, you can obviously do it more efficiently than all these people who are coming in to set up plants, and then you could plow the profits right back into the ratepayers.
Thank you.
Different emissions.
Hello, Council.
Tackle all the
My name is David Coyle. I'm from Western Washington, the Tacoma area. And I didn't come to complain, but just to find out what we were talking about today, see if I could delineate and clarify some of these issues for you, because there's a lot of discussion and there's some confusion about what we're talking about. So I'm going to try to walk you through real quick what I've seen and what we can look at. And the first point would be basically, is there a value investment here for Chelan County's future? And is there a value to what blockchain technology is? Personally, I would say, as a crypto enthusiast, which doesn't matter, there is a future to the internet and to the technologies which serve the internet. The web application servers, the hosting servers that run all the websites we're currently using. Those are the co-locations. The kind of large data centers that are running in Quincy are currently producing profits in 5, 10, 20-year investments, and those are the futures we're looking at. If you look at the market value of Bitcoin, and you look at the fluctuations, you're only ever going to see a wild speculation future. The real intrinsic value investment, the firm foundation value investment, is in the hardware, the computer servers, and how you provide power and build these data centers. So Bitcoin fails, Ethereum fails, Litecoin fails, there will be replacements which are improvements on those digital currencies. They will still require power. They will still require data centers. So it's not gambling. It's, you know, if you're trading, buy low, sell high, that's speculation, because you don't know what the market's going to do, pump or dump it. But we do know that the computers have a value. They have a resale value. They do work in real internet applications that has a value to that user. So there's an intrinsic value to this that can't be ignored, and there's intrinsic value future to this that can't be ignored. The next step from there, after acknowledging that there might be a future to Bitcoin and its infrastructure, is how do we serve that future? How do we make it pay for, Chelan County? And how do we prevent things like economic or environmental impact, social impacts that are negative? So the challenge the council has is understanding these challenges and balancing your resources so they can meet the needs of this golden goose egg who wants to lay right in your nest. So if we can get past that there is a value to this, the PUD needs to address the capacity and delivery to the currently unzoned industrial areas where we could future put in these data centers. And I think that's part of the robust rebuilding of this infrastructure from the dam out. And right now we see that we can mostly just serve northern and southern Wenatchee. That's partially because the infrastructure is built to support that right now. Further out you get, you're just toasting your lines. They can barely handle what they're doing right now. So the extra strain, good choice on the stoppage, but now we need to move forward. As far as making it valuable for everybody, that's in the tax structure, and that is in these clauses. Currently, it sounds like Chelan County has its hands tied in these contracts of power that we're selling power out, so you can't use the power that you have because you're tied to selling it out. I've seen similar problems with transit industry. Sound Transit is a regional transit authority. They have a no competition clause. As soon as they put in a bus line, now Metro and the other two transit agencies have to stop providing bus service in there. It's a no competition clause.
30 seconds.
What it means is Sound Transit then basically provides poor service, and the other companies that can provide service cannot do it. To wrap it up, I think that there is somewhere that we can get to serving the Washington state taxpayers. This is my first year as an entrepreneur and a self-employed person, and I'm looking to do data center in this industry because it's a real opportunity. But we need to know how much it's going to cost to hook up for our long-term investment, and we need those numbers for the venture capitalists to invest. And we need to keep out of state and out of foreign investors out of our low rates and give them a higher rate or some sort of tariff on their power so that this is an international industry. And if we don't address making it competitive for state taxpayers, then the golden goose egg will just lay itself in northern China, where it is, or Czech Republic. So let's get part of that egg. All right?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was letting anyone
Yeah.
know that hadn't.
And anyone who hasn't spoken, please. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. You guys have a tough job, and we appreciate the work that you're doing.
Name and address, please.
Ed Gardner, 1250 North Wenatchee Avenue, Wenatchee. I'm going to be a little bit all over the board. I'll try and keep it short, though, because I hadn't planned on speaking. Again, we appreciate your time. I believe that the PUD is set up for a 20-year, currently organic growth model. I don't see where the benefit is to serve the HDL customers and maintain that organic growth with what is, the demand in which they are asking for. If the PUD takes the resources for the HD and puts it towards the HDL, then how do we organically grow what your vision is? I don't think that. I hear what people are saying, that they don't mind paying build-out costs and stuff, but who maintains that once they're gone? To pay up front to get the power that they want, that's a big build-out. Once they leave and they talk about the speculation that somebody would come in and consume that power or move into those buildings, there's no assurance that you're going to actually be able to take all that power in which they've paid for the build out. I just see it as a burden to the ratepayers as to
where does that cost come from once they're gone to maintain what infrastructure that the PUD has built out from? I don't see, and I'm not against cryptocurrency miners, but I'm, as a stakeholder, don't see the advantage, and I'm still waiting to hear what is the benefit. It doesn't require a lot of people in these mining procedures. They don't require huge employees. I just don't see the benefit as a ratepayer to servicing these people as a benefit to us ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Susan Kidd, 6701 Antioch River Road, Antioch. I am most concerned about this from the point of view, when we see PUD, we have to remember that's a public utility district, and you are owned by the ratepayers, and the responsibility, I believe, is for the PUD to make the choices that are the best for the larger community. As I hear the Bitcoin or potential Bitcoin miners come to the podium to speak, I have been a bit appalled by what they said. One gentleman said, well, I invested in my hardware, and that's going to have to be replaced every few months. So he's telling me this is an extremely wasteful industry. And people have said, well, I want to come here. I can make money. I'm going to contribute to the community by moving my family here. You know, I am not against people moving to Chelan County. I moved here 20-some years ago. I think it's a lovely place. But I think that with a public utility, with a limited resource, it should not be invested in what, from everything I read, is essentially a Ponzi scheme that does not employ people.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah. Okay, and I would prefer you keep your comments to yourselves, please. Each person's been treated with dignity today. Let's not lose it at this point. And if you're a new speaker, I'll take you, and then we're moving on. Thank you.
This is Roberto from 44 Substation.
My name is Roberto Ocampo. I moved here from Mexico. My family lives here for more than 20 years, but I was raised by my grandfather in Mexico. So I recently moved here because of Bitcoin mining. I was coming here just visiting, and then I find out this stuff out, and I make my life out of this, Bitcoin mining. I really believe that you guys should allow and review, allowing people, if that line says for everyone to get some out of it, and if you get one machine, $1,700 can get you 17 to 20 cents per kilowatt. If I'm able to pay 2.7 cents, I'll make extra money to pay my house, to pay my car, to pay that stuff. Which is, if we break it down to the personal level to be able to mine, it's a 4 times, 5 times, maybe 17 times ratio of any money that I invest or put into PUD. I'll be able to make money out of any of the cryptocurrencies that are out there. But also will help me to pay my rent or my house. Just break that line instead of willing to sell that power that is available. Maybe allow everyone to mine on a scale that it's reasonable. And I wouldn't mind if I have a permit to mine at home, paying even double. Go, L&I, make nice install, let it go, pay double or triple that 2.7 cents, letting you guys know that I'm mining with this amount of power, and let it go. That's my suggestion or my comment.
Roberto, thank you.
I have a question for Roberto.
Excuse me, Roberto?
Roberto, I have a question. I want to make sure I wrote this down correctly. Did you say that one $1,700 mining machine will make 17 cents per kilowatt?
That's right.
That is correct. Okay,
If it isn't the current price, but there are other coins.
Right.
If we turn this into a committee, there are coins that in 6 months will make more than 17 times ratio for that. And we may turn this into something more that will benefit the whole community.
thank you.
That's what I really believe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Could you restate your name, please, and then we'll go from there?
Bryce Greenfield. I just wanted to clarify a point that I sort of spoke erroneously earlier, and then two other brief things. I'd like to offer to anyone in the audience or anyone out there to talk after this meeting about cryptocurrency specifically. There's a lot of people here that are very scared of it, a lot of people that are misinformed, and I would welcome the opportunity to just speak with you offline, somewhere else here, to just answer any questions you have, maybe allay some of your fears. That's what I wanted to mention. Second was, if any of y'all have machines that you can't get running here, see me afterwards or go somewhere else. Three, when I said that mining was going to sunset and that this was going to be a limited time endeavor, I didn't get to clarify in that it's going to transition from this energy intensive, this is my forecast personally, it's going to transition from this energy intensive, very, very consolidated effort for Bitcoin into something else broader that won't be this power-hungry monster in this exact same way. And so if we position ourselves as a community where those people come here initially, set up shop with their mining rigs, whatever, when that transition occurs, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5, 10 years from now, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, we'll be in a position, in a unique position, much like Silicon Valley, where, you know, if you build it, they will come. We will have that brain trust here that because they live here, they will do all sorts of other things because of that. So it's sort of a follow-on, stack-on benefit. And I just didn't state that correctly when I was speaking before. So that's all I wanted to say. I don't need to.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who has not spoken who has the desire to speak? We have two.
Sorry, I know you guys want to get out of here.
No,
My name
no.
is Gary Sinclair. I live at 121 Downey Canyon Road. And I see it as we have this gold, which is our hydroelectric power, and we have this great thing, and I see that everything I hear, there's going to be a drain on that, whether it's little or big or whatever. And so then if we want to grow as a community and have houses and so forth, that seems like an impossible thing for me to determine. How you guys can determine, is there going to be enough? If it's drawn now, which these gentlemen expressed their case nicely, but when I think of what we have and what they're wanting to do, which is going to grow, it sounds like to me, which means more draw on power, so that means power we don't have or how we planned on growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let me thank all of you for coming. We're going to continue on with our business here in a minute. But thank all of you for coming. I appreciate the civility in which the meeting has occurred today. I watch townhouses other places in the United States, and they become spectacles, and people who live next to each other and know each other leave not feeling fond of each other. And I just want to express my appreciation for the demeanor and conduct of everyone today. That having been said, we're going to conduct a piece of business here in terms of a motion. We're going to take a break after that and then go into executive session on some other items. So that's kind of the plan of program. Steve asked if he can do one thing, and as general manager, Steve, you can do just about anything. So it's okay with me.
I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but there were 8 points that were made that had answers to them, so I wanted to take a shot at answering them. First of all, very early comment said we are leading the world on this. Actually, that's right. So we have looked all over the place to find another utility that's dealing with a problem like this we could use as a model for rate making, for availability, et cetera. We have not been able to find one, and we are getting tons of calls from our friends in the utility industry across the country asking us, what are you doing, and can we build off of what you're doing? So we are getting a chance here to break some new ground. Second, I think a really key point is, can we serve cryptocurrency at no cost or risk to existing customers? And the answer is maybe. Depends on whether you can get the pricing right and whether you can get enough money up front, et cetera. Those kinds of things potentially could be solved, but what we don't know is whether cryptocurrency is willing to come here for that price. So part of this is a conversation about, well, here's a price that might work, that would hold the people who live here neutral to positive, which is our fundamental goal, and then see whether there's anybody willing to pay that price or not. Third, would cryptocurrency mining help pay for transmission and distribution, build for infrastructure investment that if they left could then be used for people here? Again, maybe. Depends on whether you get all the money up front. You couldn't count on that being paid back through time. So you'd have to have cash on the barrelhead in order to be able to make it work. Fourth, is fiber part of the discussion here, fiber revenue? Fundamentally, no. We don't see that much growth in the use of fiber that it makes a difference in the economics of this. So I just say that one we've looked at, we've thought about, we're not taking that into account as a significant player in this decision. Fifth, buying power. So I want to be clear that if we bought power for cryptocurrency loads, the cryptocurrency loads would be on the contract. We will not take the risk of buying power. So you would have to buy it from somebody, and the cryptocurrency is actually buying it. We will facilitate that transaction. We'll introduce you. We'll show you what the terms are. But any of the risk associated with that purchase will go with you. And to the question of whether it will be green power or brown power, that would be up to the cryptocurrency miner to decide whether they are willing to pay the premium price that you have to pay in this market for green power, which will raise the environmental issues potentially. And so the comment about SEPA and that risk is something that will have to be considered as part of this equation. Sixth, Mary Fishburne made the point about small versus large. That is the biggest problem that we're dealing with. That it's very hard. Many of the speakers.
I'm sorry, would you just start that over? I just missed the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
Your speech is faster than your fingers.
Yeah.
So one of the commenters spoke to the fact that there's a challenge with big versus large because big can become large and large can become big very easily. That is one of our biggest problems. Many of the commenters today suggested that we do differentiation between small versus big. Our problem is once we set that differentiation, a miner can move to a different category just by the way they set up. They can split their load and go to 20 different locations or bring it together in one location. So we're struggling with being able to separate big versus small. There was a comment made about why should we care about what happens on the other side of the panel? So this is really important to understand. We build our system around a set of assumptions about how you're going to take power on your side of the panel. If you do things differently from that, it increases costs for us. And when it increases costs for us, that means it increases costs for everybody who lives here, because we're nothing but a pass-through for the people who live here in this county. So there is an element of tragedy of the commons associated with this. What happens, what one does can impact everyone. And so we need to understand and be really clear about the fact that you can't just do whatever you want on your side of the panel. It will have an impact on the rest of the community. And finally, really important point that, that I failed to make early on. When we are looking at these availability numbers for transmission and distribution, we are building a margin in for organic load growth. So we are not assuming that we will build right up to the end and then we'll have to build something. We're trying to preserve room for organic load growth to make sure that, in fact, that fundamental principle that we talked about right at the beginning, is there a way to do this that would create value for this community as opposed to cost and risk for this community? You would have to assume that the existing infrastructure will be available for organic load growth in order to meet that test. So with that, thank you.
Commissioners, what is your desire, please? Mr. Smith?
Commissioner Bowles, I believe the staff recommendation was handed out. Probably people in the audience have seen the recommended motion. And as I've sat through the last couple hours of testimony, it's interesting that this is one of those moments in time where the testimony that I heard today really helped to provide clarity for me that we do need, the utility does need more time to to provide a clear path forward. And the request that they're making is for additional time until August 6th. So in that setting, I would move that we maintain the moratorium that was previously adopted on March 19th and confirmed by resolution number 18-14234, based upon the factors set forth in the resolution and on staff presentation on May 14, 2018, pending the outcome of the commission planning decisions, and set a further public hearing for August 6, 2018.
Is there a second to the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to maintain the moratorium previously adopted on March 19th, 2018, and confirmed by resolution number 18-14234, based upon the factors set forth in the resolution and on staff presentation May 14, 2018, pending the outcome of the commission planning decisions, and set a further public hearing for August 6th, 2018. Discussion?
Chairman.
Mr. Arsenault?
Having listened to testimony today and hearing practically an equal number of comments in favor as those opposed, it's clear that we don't have a path forward at this point. And I think that in order to really give this matter sufficient time to consider the merits of moving forward with some type of high-density cryptocurrency load, we need more time. And time at this point is not to be interpreted as a yes or no. It's just interpreted as, let's give staff reasonable length of time to try to really get their arms around a very complex, very technical issue that we have previously had no knowledge of or no experience of. We are blazing a path here. As the general manager mentioned earlier, there are commissions throughout the state and power companies across the United States that are watching what we're doing in Chelan County as they begin to feel the same type of pressure that we're feeling. We want to get this right. And in order to get this right, we need to give it sufficient time to consider it. So as one commissioner, I am in favor of extending the moratorium, again, not so that we can find a way to say no, but simply so that we can find our path forward to really give this the type of thought that it warrants and that it deserves.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
From this commissioner's standpoint, I really appreciate all the comments that I've heard today, pro and con. I'm really not in the business as a commissioner to determine who brings their business here and who doesn't. However, it's my job to uphold the mission of this organization to provide sustainable, reliable utility service that enhances the quality of life of this county. And it just appears to me that this tidal wave has hit us so fast and so hard that for us to move forward, I don't see how we can provide sustainable, reliable utility services and move rapidly as people would want us to. And therefore, I believe in order to do this correctly, if I look back at what we've done with those whom we've served so far, we took our time, we gave it our best thinking, we tried it, and the floodgate opened and it hit us up against the side of the face. And again, it's not to say that it's good or bad, but I feel we're required to provide the time to make sure that we do this well.
Any additional comments? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion as read, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is passed unanimously. We will take a 10-minute break, and then we will move into executive session for about 30 minutes regarding other issues. Thank you.